Instagram is the hungry beast. It needs a lot of images. And I think more and more stylists are working, who I know in New York, interior stylists, or just they are working more and more for architects and designers, because these people need to constantly feed that beast. And also, a lot of people don't really finish their homes. I feel that, especially with shelves, people have all these shelves built, and then they don't have any books, and they don't have any things, and they don't choose. They haven't figured out what to put on the shelves.
Welcome to Imprint, a podcast about creating a home and life you love. I'm Natalie Walton, an interior designer, stylist, and best-selling author focused on an holistic approach to homes. Each week, I'm sharing insights and interviews about the creative process to help you enhance both your interiors and well-being, as well as provide you with the tools and resources to make considered and sustainable choices with all that you create. Hello and welcome to Imprint. I'm very excited to share my conversation today with Hilary Robertson. Now, you might not know so much about Hilary herself, because I didn't. She was a little bit of an enigma, but I was certainly familiar with her work because you would definitely recognize her books. Some of them have been, very successful in many homes all around the world, including The Stuff of Life, Monochrome Home, and Nomad at Home. They are all incredibly beautiful books. You would certainly have seen her work. Hilary is a prolific stylist for a range of brands, and she's had a start in magazines. She has worked with the likes of Living, etc., House and Garden, and also for her client list, it includes Crate and Barrel, West Elm, and she has also collaborated a lot with the interior designer Leanne Ford. When we started our conversation, she was actually just back from a trip, and she had been working with someone that we both know. And she said she gets called the finisher. She goes into people's homes and finishes them off for them. And I thought that was just such a fun way to describe what she does. But she does so many things, and we get into her story and what she has learned about, making a big move from living in London to living in New York, and how her career has evolved over the years. I hope you enjoy learning more about Hilary as much as I did. Please enjoy my conversation with Hilary Robertson. Hi, Hilary. I am so excited to have you on the podcast, because you are a little bit of an enigma to me, but your name keeps popping up, your work keeps popping up, you're incredible with what you create. So I would love to learn more about your journey, as I'm sure the listeners would as well. So I often like to start at the beginning and kind of get a little bit more of a background about you, where you grew up, and your story, I guess, to that point of you deciding, what you're going to do with your life, when you're kind of post all those kind of years. Can you share a little bit about your sort of background?
Yeah, so I grew up just outside London, went to a very academic girls' school. My mum was a teacher there. For some reason, she had a problem with the idea of art school, so I don't know why I ever took any notice of that. So eventually I went to university, not art school. Always thought I should have gone to art school. Finished university. I had actually worked in an ad agency in a gap year, so that's the first job I did. Was I went to work in an ad agency, which I absolutely hated. I had a sort of stupid job. I never really understood what my job was, in fact. But it was the 80s, and so advertising was the big business then. I learned a lot about photography there, because I used to go and hang out with the art buyer, in the art buyer's office, and look at all the photographers' portfolios and meet people there. And I I realized that was interesting. And then I really didn't know what a stylist was. I did meet a couple of stylists, I think, came into the office, and I sort of figured out what they did, which sounded interesting to me. So yeah, so I thought, okay, maybe I can do that. Maybe that's a way of doing something visual without having to go and study interior design or whatever. I think at the time I was thinking more about fashion styling, not interiors. I decided I was gonna go and work as an intern. I got my boss to sack me, well, to say he'd sack me so I could get social security or whatever. Um, and I went and interned for free at Cosmo, at Good Housekeeping, at all sorts of magazines, really. Anyone who'd have me, and then I figured out that I just got the lay of the land. I saw that if you worked in fashion, there are a lot of people involved. Hair, makeup. It just seemed more of a caravan. Whereas when I saw the interiors world, I thought, okay, that's a little bit easier to control that, and a smaller team, and I guess that appealed to me. So then I basically hunted down a magazine job for myself, which is not easy because it's hard to get jobs on magazines, especially when you're sort of starting out. I actually went and worked for a food magazine for about a year and was the sort of in-house stylist, which was great experience. And then eventually I started working at Metropolitan Home, because Metropolitan Home, American magazine, launched in London, um, and I managed to get myself a job on the sort of launch editorial team, which was, I don't know how I did it, but oh no, I mean I just did it through sheer determination, really.
Not
So
underestimated.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I learned. Yeah, right. I learned a lot there. I mean, I worked in a tiny team, and I think the people I worked with were much older than me and had a lot less energy. So I ended up doing a lot of things, and set design, prop design. I mean, it was amazing because I mean, really letting I guess at that point I was about maybe about 25. I really had, they sort of let me do things because they couldn't be bothered. So it was great. Um, and learnt things by trial and error, really.
And so did you have
But
any
yeah,
mentors?
and
Sorry, did you have like any
I
mentors?
mean, no, they were awful. I worked for all these mean Fleet Street ladies who they really were not nice. But yeah, no, it was tough. It was horrible. I used to kind of, you know, I used to go and see a healer every weekend to kind of get over how stressful it was. But it was, I mean, I did learn a lot. I really hope women have moved on since then and can be nicer to each other. But yeah, it's a good, I think, it was just a very particular time in the 80s, uh, late 80s. And it was, I think it was great to get all that experience with no experience. That's kind of amazing. I wish I had a better, if I wish I'd had a mentor or someone to teach me stuff, but I really just learned. I don't know. I'd looked at a lot of things for a lot of years, so I feel like I had a very good sense of how to do it somehow. I don't know. I just did it.
Was it through photographers as well? Like, was it a collaborative approach in terms of the sort of sets that you would create or the scenes that you would be styling? Were they like studio set builds of like shopping style?
Yeah, I mean we did a lot of, there was like still life, and I figured out, I learned how to really work journalistically, find stories, identify trends, interpret trends, work with photographers that my boss probably chose the photographers initially, and then you create relationships, and we did a lot in studio, a lot of still life, and then a lot of house shoots, and we would have all the issues would be themed. So I just learned really how to make a magazine, which is it's a very particular skill. I love that, and I still love magazines. It it was great, we were shooting. The first shoot I ever did was on 10:8 film, which for the uninitiated is a very large format camera, and probably because it's very expensive film, I think we probably had like 3 goes at it. Maybe we did a black and white Polaroid, and then a color one, and then boom, that was it. So I think that taught me to be very decisive, and yeah, it's the opposite of how it is now, where you can kind of do a version of a version of a version.
And so,
So yeah, it
yeah.
was it was it was great.
And so, how did you end up then in the US?
Okay. So I did I did that. I mean, after I worked at that magazine, I worked freelanced a lot, but mostly I did a lot of editorial. I kind of preferred that. And then really I'd been doing that for a very long time. I made my first book in 1999, and that was exciting because that then I was finally combining writing. I always wrote on the magazines that I worked for a little bit, but I do little news stories and profiles, and nothing very long form, or never really, it was never 1,000 words, maybe 500. So I had an idea for a book. I met a publisher as a party. I managed to convince him to, do back this book, which was great. So that was my first book, Boudoir. It was cool. It was surprisingly about bedrooms, and that was great fun. And then I met my husband just as I was finishing that book, and we got married, and then he was offered, this is sort of speeding everything up, but he was offered a job in New York, and it just seemed like, why not? Because it's not an easy place to come to if don't have a good reason. So we decided to come here. So I'd already been styling and art directing, and doing this thing in many different ways. When I was freelance, I started to do a lot less. I mean, maybe less editorial and more commercial jobs, but paint companies, fabric companies, furniture companies. So yeah, when I came here, I had a very fleshed out career, and I thought, oh, it'll be easy, New York. It's like, but actually, it wasn't easy at all. I had to sort of start from scratch in many ways, I feel.
And so, were those
And I came with a 3-year-old as well, so that was another layer
wow?
to that. Yeah.
That's quite impressive. And so, was
Yeah.
your husband in the same kind of industry, like in the creative industry, or something completely different?
Yeah. No, he basically he has a company that makes architectural stone and marble things, like either staircases, building facades, fireplaces. Now they make furniture. So that was, yeah. So we had a lot in common. He'd also been an antique dealer for many years before he did that. So yeah, we had a lot in common, and we'd done up a house together before we came here. We sold that house, we came here, and that's another thing we like to do together. So yeah, we've done a lot of, we have a lot in common in that way.
And so,
And now he makes jewelry and he paints and whatever.
so finding those clients, was that based on like existing relationships that you had with people that you were using for shoots, or how did you come
No,
about getting clients? Because I know that's something that people often struggle with. You know, people who listen to this podcast, it's like,
yeah,
how do you find clients? How do you
yeah.
get people to sort of take you on? What was your approach?
Oh, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I mean, it was very, I don't know. I came in, I think we arrived at the end of 2006, and then 2007, I had a book deadline. So the first 6 months, I wrote a book for my friend Josephine Ryan. I don't know if you're familiar. She's a very well-known English antique dealer, and she had shot the book, and then I had a deadline for writing it for her. So with Ryland Peters and Small. So that was a very silly idea to do to do that, because I came with, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any childcare. I didn't have a nurse, nothing. So um, yeah, I mean, I figured it out, but it was pretty dreadful. But I think I kind of got that book in on time. So I used to use Pratt Library, which is the art school in my neighborhood, has this astonishingly beautiful library. That helped because it was a beautiful space to go and write in every day. So I got that done, and then I mean, I just wrote to people and they didn't write back to me, basically. I wrote lots of emails, heard from no one, made myself a beautiful website. I mean, I didn't make the website. I found a great web designer. She made me a beautiful website. I'm sure no one looked at it. Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely tried to to network, but it was terrible. 2008 was a terrible year where, it was a recession and no one was working. So that was sort of, I was going into, that was my sort of second year in a way. So that was bad. But actually, I had a friend from England who has a beautiful brand called Ochre. I don't know if you're familiar in Australia, but I'm sure you would have seen their design. They do a lot of lighting. They started in England, but they have a beautiful store in Soho on Broome Street, and I started to work with them doing visual merchandising, and then they wanted to make a sort of, I guess it's a sub brand. So I created that brand for them, and it's called Canvas. It still exists. Um, so that was fun, and then I think I felt a bit more at home once I was doing that. Um, so that was easier to meet people, and um, eventually through making that brand, I did find an agent. So that was probably the first thing that helped me over here, was having an agent. I think it was really, couldn't really do much without that. So
And was it hard to get the
yeah.
agent? Like, was that a process of,
Oh God, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Terrible. Yeah. I wrote to people. Had this really beautiful website, and that no one looked at. I mean, I, I just, yeah, I was also the mother of a 4-year-old or 5-year-old at that point. So I was still kind of doing a lot of juggling. So, yeah, I think eventually a friend introduced me to an agent, and she liked something that I'd done for this brand that I'd created, and then said, "Okay, let's go," and that definitely helped. And then it sort of, I guess it started to move, and then Ryland Peters and Small, the publishers, saw my house, my place that we eventually moved into in Brooklyn, and asked if they could shoot at the New York Times. So that was fun, and that I think that was a helpful thing as well. So Penelope Green, who at that time, she does something else within the New York Times now, but that was the home section, which was great, and that my house was in that. I had for the brand that I was creating, Canvas. I just pulled in all my brands all over the place, across people and makers to make things for that. And one of the things that we made was this pale pink. There was a range of linen made in Kerala, and there was this pale pink, and I decided to get my sofa made in the pale pink, which at the time was extremely unusual. Everyone was like, pink sofa? What? It was, pre-millennial pink. But and that was the sofa in the New York Times that was from my brand, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and then Ryland Peterson Small got in touch and asked me if I wanted to make a book. And I think at that point I was sort of ready to make another book, so I did.
And so
So
was which
that's
one was
kind of
that? Was the that
that's called The Stuff of
right?
Life,
Yeah.
which is really about collecting and kind of still life and collection. Because at the time I was also I started to discover the flea markets here. That was my big fun outing at the weekends, and was going to flea markets or going to Brimfield with my husband, and um, that we didn't bring anything with us, so we had to sort of we made our house from flea markets basically,
And so
and the sofa.
yeah, and so is everything in that book? Because people will be familiar with it when they see the cover, certainly, because I remember seeing
Yeah.
that book everywhere, at some point, and it's a really beautiful book, and the cover's beautiful as well. Did you shoot everything for that book? Was it like completely new content,
Hmm.
or was it pulling on
Yeah.
your portfolio at that point?
No, I've never made a book out of anything but, shot it all for the book. I've never picture researched the book. It's always been, for that specific book. So, no, I shot with New York photographer Anna Williams, and, we we shot in my house. Which and for one story was my house, and then there were, I went to Sweden, I went to Denmark, I went to Holland, I went to all sorts of places. So, but it was really, that was focused on people who are collectors and brilliant at making still lives, and it was all about personalizing your space. And I think, at the time that was, that felt right. And I remember older friends of mine saying, soon you'll want to write a book about having nothing. And I was like, huh? But now I really understand that. I'm like trying to get rid of everything. But at the time I came with nothing. So I needed things to kind of tell a story with. And so so now I'm in my shedding phase.
But
It's quite funny how that goes.
yeah, but monochrome home, I mean, that's kind of more of a minimalist slant, I guess. Like it's,
Definitely, yeah.
much
Yeah.
more pared back than the stuff of life.
Yeah. Well, that I mean I made that, but I think I got the deal to do two books, actually. And then we shot the obviously Stuff of Life first, and then where I was really kind of making sense of kind of having a new home. So I think that, and acquiring things, but then I was following a a Danish blog called Emma's blog. I don't know if you ever saw that. And I just became very aware of that look, which wasn't really here at all. People weren't. really, monochrome wasn't really the thing here at all. Um, and I really loved this blog. And I just thought, well, someone needs to do a book about monochrome, and I suggested it to my publishers, and they were like, sure, let's do it. So I did those books very close together. Um, but then I chose Pia, who's Swedish, amazing Swedish photographer, to shoot monochrome. And yeah, I mean, again, yes, I mean, I very much went with, I have very Catholic taste. I like a lot of things, but I think monochrome is if you like a lot of things, then that's actually a great way to go, because then at least you're dealing with, texture and shape and, materials, and you don't have to worry about color. So there's one anxiety goes away. But so it was great fun to do that, and that book is still selling really well, which is great to have a bit of longevity in something like that. It's pleasing to me.
Yeah.
And we shot a lot in Scandinavia, and I haven't mentioned that when I was young I lived in Denmark, so that whole aesthetic is very familiar to me.
And then your more recent book since then was Nomad at Home as well, while we're talking about books. Um,
Yeah.
It's no small feat that the fact that you've created, well, you've mentioned your first book, which isn't on your website, but looks like 5 books. If
It's so old. I think there are 7 actually.
okay.
I actually worked on a book called Brooklyn Interiors as well, but that wasn't just me. That was with a friend here. So, yeah, I think there's 7 altogether, but that's including one that I wrote and whatever. So yeah, but no, the Nomad is really, again, my books start with a question, my own questions and my own nosiness, and thinking about, you know, I want to know how other people decide to live in another country, and that's what that book was really about. I wanted, I live somewhere that I don't belong to, and that is the feeling. And actually, you're a great writer, and I like writing just as much as I like making spaces. The writing is important to me, and the questions are important to me. So that book evolved out of my own, itchy feet. I'm always looking somewhere else. So I wanted to know how other people did it, how they landed, where they landed, and how they developed their lives. I want to know those stories.
Yeah, no, me too. But creating a book is not a small feat. Like they're massive. I mean, well,
No,
from my from my perspective, like they kind of take over my
I
life.
know.
So how
Yeah, I know.
how
You've done some so in such quick succession. I mean that no, there are a lot. It's my Nomad. I started really 3 years before it came out, and that's usually my books come out very fast, after I've started them, because that's how they work. That's how my publisher likes to work. But no, I mean I started it before the pandemic. We were actually in Italy shooting, and my husband said, "You should really come home." And I was like, "Oh, I'll come home. I'm going to Sicily tomorrow. I don't want to come home." He's like, "No, I really, really think you should come home. This is getting crazy." I had friends here at Fashion Week in Milan, and they were, taking cars to Paris because they didn't want to fly, and there's all sorts of craziness going on. So yeah, my photographer Mike said he was happy to go to Sicily, so he went to Sicily without me, which is, I was fed up about that. But I flew home, and actually, as soon as I got home, I felt absolutely terrible, and I'm pretty sure I had COVID. But at the time, I couldn't have a test. So that book was a lot that had a long gestation because of COVID, really. Because then Mike, because he was Swedish, he was stuck in Sweden, and we couldn't, there was we just couldn't finish it. so we had to wait a while to finish that. But yes, you know, books are not simple,
No. And also, like, you're a mother,
and that
you're
one
a
was
wife,
really not simple.
you're working as well. Like, how have you managed to kind of juggle all of those different things while creating all of these books? Because it's a lot to take on.
Yeah, it's kind of pretty hellish, really. But but I really like making books. I mean, you must really like making books. It's what I understand. I mean, now I am style director of a newish print magazine, you know, about Leanne, and I'm style director of her magazine, Feel Free, and that is so fun for me because that's what I understand. I know how to make books. I know how to make magazines. I like to look for stories. I like to, find the red thread. I like to meet people. I like to, that's just such fun. And I think, if there were a magazine, if there had been magazines I could have worked for in that way before, I probably, would have done that too. But but the book, the sort of making a book, it's just what makes sense to me. I guess that's what I learned to do in my 20s. So I can't stop myself, even though it's so painful. I went to see my cranial osteopath the other day, who asked me, "Oh, so what are you gonna do? What are you doing at the moment?" I said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna start another book." And she was like, "Oh no, really?" Because she could remember probably me complaining about about the
Yeah.
terrible, terrible.
It's interesting because I think for me, like, I come from a magazine background as well. And I think that, similar to you, like styling on magazines, writing for magazines, and, there's so much fun and it's an enjoyable thing, but you're really restricted by, what the publisher wants or the editor or, all of those
Mm,
things. Whereas a book, it's like I get to do the thing that I want to do and, have it look the
mhm.
way that I want it to look and have the content be about the topics that are interesting to me. And so it's kind of like that creative indulgence, I guess, in a way, which is really
No, definitely. I mean, yeah, sometimes you think, gosh, someone's I mean, it's not a lot of money. It's a fraction. I lose a lot of money in a year that I make a book, because I have to say no to so many things. My agents are always like, "Argh," really another book? Well, why? But it's hard for me not to scratch that itch because I get to be in charge of that little universe. And there's always a look, as you know, there's compromises, things that you can't do. You set out with this intention, you have, and then there's so many moving parts. I have to be my producer, I have to be everything, really. Um, but yeah, in the way it's incredibly satisfying. But yeah, I mean it's addictive, I guess. I don't know what to say, but that's how I feel.
yeah. No, I understand. I'm at the moment, I'm just feeling a little bit burnt out from books. Like, I'm sure I'll come back to it again, but I just feel like I just need a little bit of a breather because I just know how much goes into creating one, that, like, it's like you say, you have to say no to a whole bunch of other things. And yeah, it's
Mm,
there's a challenge
mm.
in that a little bit as well, particularly when you're just trying to pay the bills and do all the things. So
No,
I
it's
completely
it's really hard. It's really hard, especially, well, it's like juggling different parts of what we do. That's it's not straightforward, and you're constantly changing pace. And also, I don't know if this happens to you, but in America I have to fly to work a lot of the time. I don't work in New York. I'll be working in LA or Chicago or Pittsburgh, or I can very often not work in New York for a month and be really away a lot, a lot. So it's hard to it's hard to keep. any kind of regularity and any kind of rituals and habits. And that's sort of what I crave a bit, when I've finished something. But I do really love the writing part of a book because I like the fact that then I get to be still. That's nice,
Yeah.
you know.
So let's talk about your relationship with Leanne Ford, your collaboration. You work together a
Mm,
lot. So how did that come about? You mentioned being a style director for her magazine, Feel Free, but you've also
yeah,
styled a
yeah,
lot of her projects as well. So yeah, share
yeah.
how that came about.
Well, I think she just started really seriously as an interior designer, transitioning from fashion to interiors, and she I guess she found Monochrome Home, and she wrote to me and asked if I could come and style some of the places that she designed. And she was living in LA at the time. And while I do go to LA, I never know when I'm going to be there. So I was like, sure, when I'm there, next time I'm there, I'd love to do that. But I guess it didn't happen immediately, but we always kept in touch. But then I think everything kind of started to take off for her. And Crate and Barrel, she was the first person that Crate and Barrel got to design a collection, um, out of house, so to speak. So she asked for me to art direct and style her first Crate and Barrel shoot, which was amazing. And actually, in this place called the Philip Dixon House, which is quite an incredible location in LA, belongs to a photographer who he built it to be a location. He's a fashion photographer, so he, knew how to make something that would be really easy to shoot in. So that was also very exciting to me because it was a space that I put on my Pinterest board years ago. So that was great. And then we met each other, and then we've been, working with her crate collections, and then her houses, and it's funny because she's a designer, but she calls me her finisher. She doesn't necessarily want to do that bit of it, so that's what I do, and it's really fun. I love it.
Yeah.
It's great to have a space that you just need to kind of take to another level. It's enormously satisfying. I love it, and we obviously like the same things, so and got on very well. So I think we have lots of things in common. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to work with her.
So how would you describe, like, to someone who doesn't really know what styling is, they've kind of got a general sense, like what to you is a difference between styling and interior design, interior decorating? Like, how do you define what styling is and how it's different to those kind of things? I know, like, I mean, to me, it's quite apparent because I'm so like. I know it so all of those things so intimately, but I think there's still a lot of confusion about, well, what actually is a stylist? What does a stylist do?
Yeah, I think that there are unfortunately, there's like different ways in which a stylist works. And I would say that one of the things that was apparent when I came to New York is that stylists in America work very differently from stylists in England. And I think you'll understand this because you have an editorial background as well. Um, many many of the stylists who work here are will never have worked for a magazine and may never do editorial. um my interpretation of an interior stylist was always someone who would seek out trends, and whether it's a color or a shape or a texture or anything that you know that you're feeling that's coming in the future, and then interpret that and show how that works within an interior. And that's what I was doing on the magazines that I work for. I was also always looking for new talent, you know, potters, glass blowers, you know, makers, going to all the shows, going to Milan, going to Paris, Maison et Objet. But it's really about, you know, being a journalist in that way. So that was my magazine interpretation of it. But you know, there's also so many other ways of being a stylist, whether it's um, you know, working commercially with you know, a furniture brand, a paint brand. They're coming to you and saying, you know, you know, build a little world for us, I guess. You know, you're kind of build, you know, you're either I mean, really, ideally, you're putting the team together, you're choosing the location, you're finding the photographer. That's a very editorial way to do it. And here, in the catalog world, it is much more about, you're given the product, you basically play with it. Maybe you design a set, or maybe you go on a you find you know you go on a location and you create a world in that way. I mean, there's a push and pull between the commercial and the editorial for me. I don't know what you think about how that's worked for you, but here these worlds are quite separate. Although, you know, one does end up. I mean, I like to do both things, but and then, you know, obviously the other thing that one can be involved with is, for magazines, you will go to a house that has been chosen, and then you will make it, you know, polish it up to look its best, find the best angles, work with the photographer to tell the story of the house. I mean, that's the kind of the easiest thing that you think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's
Yeah.
the easiest way of being stylist, but I think that, you know, again, that's a very particular skill. You have to know, you know, how to tell the story. And houses, and you know, they're all so different, shapes of rooms, sizes, volume, you know. So that again, a huge amount of experience goes into, you know, knowing how to frame that house for a magazine.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, all of those ways you've described styling definitely resonates with me and what I've done, and, you know, colleagues of mine in Australia. And I think that increasingly, and you know, I'll be curious what it's like from your perspective in the US as well, that I feel that more and more interior designers, architects are using interior stylists to come in to style shoots
Oh gosh,
because
yeah,
of not only their
definitely.
portfolio for their website, but because social media is so huge now. I feel that people need to create
Yes,
a
hungry beast.
huge
Yeah,
amount of content for online that they didn't have to do before. Like previously, interior designers or architects would have websites and they'd
yeah,
invariably be out of date, you know,
yeah.
because it was so expensive to update a website. Whereas
Mm.
now it's so easy
Hmm.
to update all these things. So
Totally, yeah,
there's definitely stylists
yeah,
who specialize in working with interior designers to, as you say, finish the spaces, you know, make them look best as they can for websites, you know, Instagram, all of that, those kind of things. Do you work much with other
yeah.
interior designers, or are you still more?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no, I do. I mean, it's funny. I would say and I've realized that is becoming more and more a bigger and bigger market for people, just as you described it. That's huge because, as you say, the Instagram is the hungry beast. It needs a lot of images, and that I think more and more stylists are working, that who I know in New York, interior stylists, or you know, just stylists who do various different things. Um, they are working more and more for architects and designers because these people need to constantly feed that beast. And also, you know, a lot of people don't really finish their homes. I mean, I feel that especially with shelves, people have all these shelves built and then they don't have any books and they don't have any things, and they don't choose, they haven't figured out what to put on the shelves. So I feel like that's a huge area of for a shoot and for life. There's New York is full of empty shelves as far as I can see that need love and need that finish, that layer, that extra layer.
So can you just shine a little bit of a light on your process? Like, what is your process when you go into somebody's home, somebody's got a home and their shelves are empty and they're crying out for some love? What do you do? How do you bring spaces to life? What's your kind of your process and the way that you would like to work and what you think helps spaces?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's always better if the people if it's a house and there's a family, there's a couple, whoever, they live in the house. It's always better that what you put on those shelves has some, you know, resonance with them. You want it to be something that means something to them. You know, so I mean, I love you know, looking at sculptures and found objects and you know, anything that kind of brings some kind of personality is always what I'm looking for. Um, and I go to lots of flea markets, and I go to lots lots of makers and I guess I'm always sort of trying to gather things. Instagram is fantastic for kind of figuring out new makers and people. I've ordered some ceramics from Canada recently just because I found them on Instagram. I think I save and save and save and save new things that I find, and I you know I'm trying to be more selective with things. I think at some point there was like you just wanted I needed to have a lot of volume of things because it was easy. Sometimes I just don't have a lot of time between jobs and I need to kind of take my own things. Um, but now I don't know. I only want to have things that I really, really like. So yes, I have my own collections, and then sometimes I'll try to shop for people and put collections together for them that relate at least hopefully to things that they're interested in. So I work with a designer who'll tell me a bit about her clients, and then we'll try to put things together. I don't want people to have things in their house that don't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
That whole idea of sort of books by the yard is a little sad, but sometimes that's what people want.
Yeah. Yeah. So give us a little.
But yeah, I mean, I think. Sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say, so, I mean, it'd be, I mean, you can continue, but I'd love to kind of extend upon that and sort of learn then. So, what does, a kind of typical, in inverted quotes, week or day look like for you in terms of, the
Oh
type of
God.
work that you're doing and, even that whole process of styling someone's home, like going outsourcing, then doing the work, is it for more private clients or interior designers, or are you doing kind of week-long shoots and campaigns for
All of
clients? Everything.
all of that. Yeah. All of those, really, all of those things. At the moment I'm working with a client to really relaunch their website and changing their sort of brand identity. So that that's been a mixture of casting, because we're doing some real people casting and location finding. So that those shoots, there's a mixture of shoots with people and directing video, and that's all going to be a sort of body of work that is going to be launched on a new website, and then we're also creating an identity for that client with and you'll understand this, basically finding an architectural style this company makes furniture, so an a vernacular that will be identified with the furniture. So we'll kind of keep going. You know the way Boffy has those dark kind of moody interiors, and Carl Hansen used the Javier Cordero house to shoot furniture. It's just kind of finding architecture to then be the setting for the furniture, but to kind of keep going with that and create a universe. So that's a fun client. I mean, I don't really ever have a week that's the same, I would say, because unless I'm shooting for a catalog, and that will, usually shoots are like 1 week or 2 weeks. So, you will prep, I'll fly somewhere, and then, you'll be in at the studio or the location all week. And some, we get less and less prep days because more and more people want to only use their product, which and then maybe we'll make some art, maybe maybe we'll go and meet some artists we can borrow from or rent from, and but that time for a commercial job is short. It's only the time when you're gathering is very short, and then you're really going to the flower market, and just making the whole thing work in the studio. It'll be a set, maybe we've designed a set, the set builders built it. So every day is you're basically making these rooms all day long.
One thing I did want to ask you is, I
Mm.
mean, for me personally, and I have 4 children, so it's perhaps slightly different circumstances, but one of
I
the
only have one.
reasons that I sort of stepped away from doing as many of those kind of styling shoots and jobs was
Yeah,
because it can be
yeah.
really tiring. Like it's, you're physically moving things around a lot. You're,
Mm,
you're running all around, getting the props, doing all the things. And I mean, we moved
mm,
away from the city as well, so that was part of
mm.
the equation of it as well. But I'm just curious about for you, like, do you find it energizing to you, the kind of, because it's a very physical work styling, or do you find it tiring? I mean, I'm just curious about your relationship with it.
I find it annihilating, but I have a lot of energy for things that I like doing. Um, I really like the physicality of it, but yeah, I mean it is I really I say no to lots of things because I don't want to do everything. I like to be in control of things. I would say I work more as a creative director than a stylist really now. I'm making sure that is is more the way that I want to that I want to develop projects, because I like to create the whole. When I finish a book, I feel miserable because I've been on a journey, and with all the highs and lows, but I've been in charge of that journey as much as I possibly can. So it's hard for me to then go back to like being part of something rather than you know ruling something, if you see what I mean. But yeah, no, it's exhausting for sure, and we work a standard 10-hour day, which is brutal, and quite often with there's overtime is expected, and no, I don't like that at all. I think it's crazy. So no, whenever I can, I try to be in charge of all those things. So I generate my own projects a lot, and try to you know keep the parameters. that work for me, and I could not have had 4 children because I mean, I don't know how anyone does that. But I have huge admiration for that. But because I don't know how do you spend your time? I mean, I know that you have your store. I actually dabbled in having, and I say dabbled because I was very bad at it. I loved buying things for people. I love antique buying for stores, and I love merchandising. But I've had my own store twice, and I really didn't like it because. But is your store actually a physical place as well as uh, the online thing?
Yeah, it started online, then we moved into a space. COVID happened and there was a series of events. So we moved out of that space, but we're actually, I've been designing a new space and we're going to have like a showroom because it's going to have a warehouse and all of those sort of things as well. So it will again have like a physical space, which I'm really enjoying, and it kind of brings together those different elements. And I do, I mean, yeah, my books have kind of taken up a huge amount of my time, and I also do sort of online education, which is really satisfying, and I really
Yeah,
enjoy that as well. So
yeah,
that kind of just works in really nicely for me at this stage of my life with children at school and all of those things. But
yeah.
yeah, I was just curious because the other question I wanted to ask you as well was, and it relates to all of this is. I mean, you very much seem to be the stylist, the kind of the go-to stylist that leading brands use. People such as Leanne Ford, and obviously, we live in a world now where personal brand is so big, and it sort of seems like you haven't, you
Mm-hmm.
choose to perhaps intentionally or not, I'm not sure, you can shine a light on this, but
No,
you're, like
yeah, it's interesting. It's a good
some people,
question.
it's sort
Yeah,
of more
yeah, yeah.
about going forward and putting your face forward as like, I am the brand versus, and sometimes that
Yeah,
can be,
yeah,
the front of it rather than actually
yeah,
doing the work. And I'm just curious about if you're
yeah.
interested in that, or you've deliberately stayed away from that, you prefer to be behind the scenes, what is it for you?
I don't, yeah, I don't prefer to be behind the scenes at all, but I actually I'm nearly 60. I just don't want to be on camera. I really don't. I'm too old. I just don't want to have to worry about how I look. I don't want to have to be on Instagram constantly. I don't want to take selfies. I don't. It's age. I mean, I'm being very honest. I just don't want to do that. I just feel that's too much pressure for a woman who's nearly 60. I don't want to do it. I wish I could. I would love to be more of a brand in a sense, but it's just I've been offered TV shows and all that kind of stuff, but I just think I don't know. I just feel too much pressure. That if I, if someone had asked me when I was 35, sure, but Leanne's 42, so and still it's just too much pressure. I think for you to have to be the brand and be on TikTok and doing all that stuff. I just don't want to do that. I'd rather, I'd rather be writing a book, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting question. I just think it's very difficult. you know, I love I love what I do, and I love all the different bits of it. But yeah, it's really hard to be physically identified with that. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, to be honest, I was very much happy to be behind the scenes. Like, I didn't want to do any of that until my first book was about to come out, and this was now 5 years ago. And I mean, literally, there was only one photo of me out there in the world, which was like my bio
Yeah.
photo, and I kind of realized that for me anyway, I felt like I mean, that first book in particular, like I really poured my heart and soul into it. It was such a massive thing to do, and I thought I wanted to give it its best opportunity, and I thought, you know what, like I kind of have to put myself out there a little bit because like it is so much about personal brand these days. But I completely understand what
Mm,
you're talking about, and maybe you're at a
Mm.
different, I mean, I never remember how old I am. I'm 47.
No, but you're definitely you're 12 years younger than me,
So
basically.
I completely
Yeah.
understand. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to be, necessarily, if I was 60, or kind of getting towards that point, even to be honest, like in a few years' time, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be doing this in a few years' time, like still out there, having to stick my face on things. But I understand as well, like people, it resonates and, there's benefits, but it's a different headspace, it's a different skill, it's a different experience. There's pros and cons to everything, I think, and I mean, I think that
No,
it's
definitely.
just a
Yeah.
different landscape that we're all navigating as well.
Yeah, I mean, who knew that that would be the way things would develop? I mean, I think, I think I actually have a lot of fun being behind the scenes with Leanne because, it's fun to, work on, setting up the brand, the new collection and, playing with all the stuff. It's fine. I mean, I've had collections of products with Blue Mist, and I have I'm working on a paint collection, a line paint collection at the moment. It's just marketing is a huge part of it, and I think it's interesting that now really you sort of have to stick your face on it, but but I'd love to do it and not have to stick my face on it.
Yeah. And then having said all that,
um,
like, I love when I see people like Diane Keaton, as an example of a
yeah,
woman who's got incredible style and who's still doing her thing and putting her face out, like, because why should we disappear? Like, why should women disappear? Because,
no,
we
I
get older,
know,
so
yeah,
it's like I see that side of it as well. And there's a part of me that thinks, yeah, I'm not in my 30s anymore, but I want to be part of the conversation too. And, like women should still be part of the conversation, the style conversation,
I
even if they're in their
agree,
40s or
yeah,
50s or 60s and beyond or whatever it is. So,
yeah.
yeah.
No, no, I agree. I mean, I think the thing is that just the way that things have developed, that is definitely that's the most um the most the sort of I guess the easiest way to really get people's attention, which there's something great about that. But I just think it's just that takes that you have to be very brave and very self-confident to do that, I think. And I'm not confident. I think the sad thing about when you get to your 60s is that you probably are the best at what you do that you've been in your whole life. You have a huge amount if you have if you stuck to one thing, you have a huge amount of experience, and you really know how to solve problems extremely quickly, and all the workarounds, and but at the same time, if if you don't want to be visible, it is it's a strange problem to have, because on the one hand you feel very powerful, and on the other hand you sort of you don't feel powerful, because it's strange. It's a funny thing to have to think about. I wonder if men think about this. I
Mm,
don't know.
I wonder too. All right, I'm going to go into the last. We've got like some more rapid fire style question to get some more
Yeah,
personal insights
sure.
into you and your journey. So the first question is, which 5 words best describe you?
Um. Oh gosh. Eccentric. Um. Energetic. Um. I'm also. I call myself a horizontalist. I like to work hard and rest hard. Um. Uh. um, Nosy. Curious. Um.
That's 5.
Impatient. And also I can't count.
Okay. I can relate to a lot of those though, except for maybe the horizontalist. I'm not very good at
Oh well,
being
yeah,
still, but yeah.
you got 4 children.
um,
My son's 20, so I get it. You know, like when I'm not vertical, I can be horizontal.
what's the best lesson you've learned, or one of the best lessons you've learned on your sort of journey so far?
Uh, I mean, coming to America, I had to relearn everything. To be commercial, I mean, really didn't understand that at all. Um, America taught me to understand business a little, and um and also I'm learning more and more and more to say no. I think no, I would say, is that's all you got in the kind of business I'm in, is I was waiting all week last week whether to find out whether I was going to London next week to work. Everything is always there's always a wait and and sometimes the only power you have is the no, but that also is powerful and helps you shape what you're going to do.
Mm. What's your proudest achievement?
Oh gosh. Um, Making books, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, books are scary sometimes, and you have a small budget. You're sometimes you're thinking, why, is anyone even gonna bother reading this? And people often say to me things like, well, no one's gonna read it, which
Yes.
I find very annoying, given that I actually really care about the
Me
writing.
too.
So, but I guess those I am proud of those, I guess. But I'm about the next thing. I'm an Aquarian, so I'm about the future. That's very, I finish a book, I'm on to the next one.
Yeah.
That's just how I work.
Me too. I'm not Aquarian, but I'm like that as well. What's been your best decision?
Gosh, ooh, maybe just um. I think I was right to decide to be a stylist. I think it was a good job for me. It worked out.
Yeah.
I think jumping into this world, I knew I could do it instinctively, and I think that was the right decision for sure.
I'm just curious as well.
But also,
Sorry, keep going.
no, go on. Sorry. Yeah. No, I was going to say, I also, for me, the writing part of it is also very important, which I think confuses the hell out of people, because people want you to be one thing. They want you to be either visual or a words person, and I I think I'm good at both.
Mm.
So
I was
yeah,
going to ask you
doing
about
both.
your decision to stay in America as well. What do you love about America and or New York? Why have you decided to stay all these years?
Oh, I'm always leaving. I spend my whole every Friday I'm leaving. Um, I mean, America is, it's she's a hard mistress. I think New York, but I mean, you get the opportunity to do things. You have to be, it's a crucible. You have to be very, very good at what you do. And there's a lot of competition, and you have to be very determined. And yeah, I mean, I never was very good at having assistants until I came here, and now I have the most fantastic assistants, amazing assistants. I've learned how to be a boss, I think. So, and that's thanks to the way things work here. And I've had, opportunities to work in a, bigger way with bigger budgets, and that that's been great. Um, but I miss Europe terribly, so I'm always moaning about that. But America's a great place to learn how to be a business person, even if you are a creative, I think.
Yeah. So do you
So
think
that's
you'll end
been
up
good.
retiring in Europe or in England?
Yeah, I mean, no, England's kind of a mess right now. I love England very much. I miss it a lot. I go home a lot because I have a 90-year-old mother. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I do really love England, but I'm not sure. Europe definitely, not necessarily England. So yeah, I've got plans in that direction. Yeah,
I'm curious, where would
yeah.
be your sort of ideal place to sort of put down stumps in Europe?
Well, we've been looking at Mallorca. Um, I think that I mean that was a little bit random in a way. I mean, Mallorca, Greece, um, France, I love. Italy, I love. Um, but I just had a friend who made a fantastic home in Mallorca and is enjoying it a lot. So I was just um, I was curious. I'd been there before and curious about it and started to look at houses there. So we're still looking at that. I mean, to me, once you've lived in America, Europe seems so small and accessible, and you can, hop on a plane and be in London in under 2 hours, and that seems like nothing to me. So I
Mhm.
think once you've lived in a big place like this, it it almost doesn't matter where it is in Europe. I looked at Puglia. I looked at I don't know. It's almost too hard to decide. But yeah, I'm still looking. I'm going to Mallorca in September, so I'm yeah, still looking at houses there.
Yeah, be yeah, spoilt for choice. Um, who
Yeah.
inspires you?
Ooh. I mean, I always feel that the thing that inspires me the most is seeing films and going to art exhibitions, going to museums, and that's what I like to do. It's not so much a who, more of a you know just always being hungry about seeing seeing films that with visual references that that I sort of eat up and store in my head and um going to the I mean, quite often seeing paintings that I've seen many times before. I don't know. I feel that's what you pull on as a stylist. That's your visual library that sticks in your head. That's what I like to do.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, doing that, I think.
What are you passionate about?
Oh, travel. I mean, always want to be traveling but I love cities. I really find cities um very inspiring, and I love to get to know them, and I love to feel that I have some familiarity with places, be it Paris or Rome or just walking and taking everything in. Just give me a new city and I'm happy. I love that. And swimming. I like to swim. That's my way of turning, not exactly turning off. It's where I have my best ideas when I'm swimming.
It's very meditative, isn't it? When you sort of get in the flow of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
dream do you still want to
That's
fulfill?
gosh, so many. I mean, yeah. I'm very yeah. I'm always have many, many, many things I want to do. I mean, I'd like to write a non-fiction book. I mean, sorry, the opposite. I'd like to write a novel. I would like to write something that isn't about interiors. I would very much like to do that. yeah, I mean that's probably enough of a goal, I think.
Yeah. What are you reading? What's on your bedside table or on your coffee table at the moment?
I just I just read a fantastic book by Helen Garner. Uh, you familiar?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Which
she's
one?
Australian.
Can you recall which one?
It's the one about I cannot silly I didn't take in the title, but it's about her friend coming to stay with her who has cancer and who's basically
Yes.
dying. It's
Yeah, yeah. I've read
fantastic
that one.
book.
It's a beautiful book. I can't think of the name of it either, but
It's
we'll put it in the show notes. I've read
so
that one years ago.
yeah, it's so beautifully written and just yeah, so astonishing. I
Mm,
kind of gulped it down in one sitting. I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, you know, like many people, I stopped reading so many novels and got, you know, in the sort of loop of endless scrolling and Instagram and Pinterest, and I'm just trying to read more books at the moment, um, which I find is, you know, it's great. It's just sad that I don't know why that, you know, I could have spent um lockdown reading books. I did actually make a lot of flower arrangements. That was my way of sort of feeling good during the pandemic. But I wish I'd read a whole lot more books. I love reading, and yeah, I'm sad that you know, I didn't fill my days with more reading. But the ridiculous thing was I tried to read the emails in my inbox. What that don't ever do that. It's ridiculous. You know, there's so many.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
What are you listening to? Do you listen to podcasts or otherwise do you like to listen to music?
Yeah, I mean I do. I love, but I'm a Radio 4 person. I've listened to radio since I was about 11 or 12, and always the BBC Radio 4 or Radio 4 Extra. I listened to that religiously online, and then yeah, I started to listen to a lot of podcasts. I really like podcasts because you know, being a radio listener, podcasts are, you know, perfect for me.
Mm,
So I like I like listening to the Modern House podcast is
mhm.
great, and I like I I I like there's so many that I'm sort of trying to expand my podcast, um you know, the ones that I subscribe to, because really naturally I'll just go to listen to Woman's Hour, which is this Radio 4 program that I, you know, has been around for, I don't know, 50 years or something. I listen to, you know, all that makes me feel that I'm still in England, which I love. You know, it's a very cozy feeling, although, you know, the news is often depressing. But I love that particular, you know, listening to radio. There's even the food program, which seems ridiculous, um, as a concept, but that's one of my favorite BBC radio programs. Wonderful.
Yeah, so good. And finally, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh gosh. Take no notice of your mother. I don't know. I do wish I'd sort of stuck up for myself and gone to art school. Not never too late, but you know, I mean, I loved university and it was great, but I think, you know, don't as a young person, you know, if your instinct is that you want to do something, if even if people aren't enthusiastic about it, I think you should do it. So stick to your guns,
Definitely. Well, thank you
I
so
would say.
much. I've
Follow your
really
instinct.
enjoyed, finally getting to know a little bit more about you and your story and all the things, the many, many things that you do. And it's been, really insightful. So thank you so much for your time today, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to ask you lots of questions. Anyway, one day I'm gonna. I really I've never been to Australia, which is pretty crazy. So one day I will, because I have good friends there. But I'd love to ask you questions.
Yeah, well, I keep
Do it.
meaning to. I haven't really done a proper travel since COVID, so it's time. I think it's time to do a trip and get back into the swing of it. So who knows? Maybe we can meet up in New York or something like that. Something fun.
Well, if you come, let me know, and let me help you. Plan whatever. I'm sure Leanne would love to meet you too. So yeah, let's
Sounds
see
like a
what
good
we
idea.
can do.
All right, that sounds so good.
Thanks
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. All of the links and info for this episode are at nataliewalton.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a direct download of the latest episode. And I really appreciate when you take a minute to rate and review, as well as share the love with someone you know who might benefit from this episode, or on social media. If you'd like to access a range of free resources, come visit my website, nataliewalton.com. Thank you to Jaeger Media for producing this podcast. And I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Bundjalung Nation where it was recorded, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm Natalie Walton, and you've been listening to Imprint.